First, to the thousands that are listening and who have seen this over the past several days, thank you very much. On the first day, we put up a series of slides at the beginning of this program. And in those slides, you saw a couple of different things. You saw the worldwide burden of kidney disease. And obviously, from the attention and the interest around the world to come in to the United States to watch this on live stream from George Washington University and with AAKP is a testament to the fact that there's an intensity among patients and professionals to access care, to exercise their choice as consumers, and try to get the best innovations and technologies in place to help not only themselves live, but for those who they love, who are in their families, and for their friends. The other slide that we put up was the history of political technology, small p, and the evolution of that in the past 100 years, and how people in a dynamic society work to connect with one another to try to influence change. Now, the model that I put up there are the technologies that are used to change things in a democracy, to elect new people that represent your viewpoints and your principles. But the fundamentals of that evolution of technology are the same if you're ever trying to advance any major initiative in a country or around the world, and that's to effect change through technology of communications and connecting people. This week, there's a news story about a mission in space where scientists are working now to grow artificial organs in space. And that was announced earlier this week. And it's fascinating. And that's what's going up in the heavens up above. But the fact is, down here, across every country, people are suffering. And while we hope for the innovations that are space-based, you heard 2 days of innovations that are happening now. You listen to the investors and the challenges that they have. You listen to the entrepreneurs who have the courage to go out and engage investors and engage imagination. You listen to the fine U.S. civil servants whose heavy duty is to pursue research, to regulate, to figure out how to pay. You listen to the companies that have a stake in this. Most importantly, you listen to the researchers and the medical professionals that care for people like us, for people who have been through it all, and for AAKP in particular, and for our board member, Lisa Gardner, who's watching this on dialysis in live stream. You heard the voices of patients who have been impacted by a disease. In some cases, there's some of us here who have been lucky enough to go through that for decades. And as we say consistently, our lives have to matter. You heard from my friend Richard Nelson celebrating 100 years of his father's birthday. That's a family that actually understands the human impacts of kidney disease. But they did not settle for the status quo. And the status quo is a funny thing, because the status quo has people who are invested in the status quo and they seek to defend it. But as one president said, whose name is on the emergency room, those who defend things like that ought to be on the dustbin of history, because history's changing, and history's definitely changing in kidney disease. If you want to be where the future is, and if you want to impact human life, not just here in the United States, but if you want to impact it around the world, and you have a care about kidneys, whether it's your kidney that's impacted or a loved one or anyone else you know, the time is now to get involved in kidney disease. The time is now to make an impact, and the barriers of a border and the barriers of language are eliminated. If you drive hard on communications, you make that point, you connect with people, you can build a mass of people that will be ready to change it. And you have fine organizations like the American Society of Nephrology by your side. You have our allies, the transplant surgeons. And it's an interesting menagerie and a circus, sometimes of personalities, but you find the principles that you agree on and you keep driving. And that's the one point to get across to everybody who's here. We all have a stake in it, but that patient and that patient voice informs the entire ecosystem. And there is no doubt in my mind that in our lifetimes, before we pass, people will look at one another as patients and say, hey, thanks for contributing to that. The worst case scenario would be our lives expire and we're not here anymore and it's the same status quo. But that's not going to happen. You have a mix of personalities in this and a bunch of professionals who care about us and a bunch of people who have the courage that work in government and that work in the private sector who are alongside patients saying, you don't have to deal with that for another 50 years. That's the ideal. So we're here to write the positive story. We're not here to dwell on a story that's gone on for generations. It's about innovation. It takes people across the world. And I hope that this event is the start of something that goes for a very long time and brings the best of us together and leaves the worst of us in the dustbin. So thank you very much to everyone, and thank you very much to George Washington University and my good friend, Dr. Raj. Thank you.